What do you mean the kitchen's out of mashed potatoes again? Vernon Talcott stood in his corner office, staring at the weekly operations report from Store 7. The 10th location he'd inherited from his late father's buffet chain 2 years ago, and the numbers lately had been off. Food waste was high, labor hours misreported, and customer satisfaction tanking hard. Vernon wasn't a stranger to the business. He'd grown up bussing tables during summers, but since taking over, he'd taken a step back, delegating to district managers, trusting the systems his dad had built. But something wasn't right. He was getting too many sugar-coated updates, and his gut told him things weren't what they seemed. He decided to go undercover. Vernon chose Store 7, located 2 hours from corporate. It was a busy location near a college town, and he'd never met the staff personally. That helped. The corporate chain handled all hiring and uniforms, so no one would recognize him. He grew out a beard, cut his hair shorter, and wore prescription glasses he didn't need. His name tag read, Cal, a new trainee hired through the company's usual temp agency. The store manager, a tall man with a clipboard named Nate, barely looked up when Vernon walked in. New guy? Nate asked, chewing gum. Yeah, Cal. Starting today. Cool. Grab an apron from back. We're low on staff, so you're on floors and helping bus tables. Don't get in anyone's way. Vernon nodded and headed to the back. The kitchen was loud, chaotic. Workers moved fast, but the energy felt tense. No greetings, no smiles, just heads down, get through the shift vibes. By hour 3, Vernon was already sweating through his shirt. The lunch rush had hit hard. He was sweeping near the salad bar when he noticed a teenage girl wiping down trays by herself, moving fast, clearly overworked. She looked no older than 16. Petite, dark ponytail, red shirt slightly faded compared to the others. Hey, need help with those? Vernon asked, grabbing 2 stacked trays. She glanced at him, then smiled. Thanks. I'm Willow. Cal. They worked side by side for a while. She was quick, polite to customers, and didn't stop moving. How long you been here? He asked casually. Little over a year. I pick up weekends and weekdays after school. School and this? That's a lot. Yeah. She hesitated. I'm saving up. For what? College. And, stuff. He nodded, then noticed her shoes, plain black sneakers. Not the standard issue non-slip ones. You didn't get the work shoes? She shrugged. They only give you 1 pair if you're full-time. I'm part-time, so I had to buy my own. Same with the shirt. Vernon blinked. Wait, you had to pay for your uniform? Willow nodded like it was nothing. Just how it is. Vernon stared at her, unsure how to respond. That wasn't how it was supposed to work. Employees, especially minors, weren't supposed to pay out of pocket for work gear. He made a mental note, then saw Nate walk by, barking orders at a quiet boy near the soda station. Hey, clean that sticky mess or you're clocking out early. The boy flinched and scrambled over. Willow sighed. That's Nate. He kinda sucks when the district guy's not around. Vernon didn't respond. He was watching Nate laugh with another worker, completely ignoring an elderly couple trying to get help at the carving station. The shift dragged on. Vernon kept sweeping, wiping tables, helping carry trays. He watched as Willow stayed late, covering for someone who didn't show. Not once did Nate thank her. After the dinner rush, as Vernon was dumping trash outside, he found Willow on the bench, tying her worn sneakers. Still here? He asked. Waiting on my mom. She gets off late from her second job. Vernon sat beside her. You work hard. She gave a tired smile. Gotta. He hesitated, then asked, Don't they reimburse you for the uniform at least? She shook her head. Nope. I bought 2 shirts and the apron. Cost me like $60. That's why I only wear 1. I wash it every night. Vernon just stared at the parking lot for a second. A tightness built in his chest. This wasn't the company his dad built. Something had gone wrong. "Willow," he said softly, "has anyone talked to you about moving up?" She laughed. "Me? No. I asked once, but Nate said he doesn't promote kids." He clenched his jaw. That was it. Enough observation. Tomorrow he'd stay longer. See more. Talk to others. But already, Vernon knew this location was broken, and it was time to fix it. By the next morning, Vernon arrived early enough to watch the opening routine. The overhead fluorescence flickered to life as a quiet hum filled the dining area. He stood near the back prep sink rinsing off trays, pretending not to listen while Nate dished out instructions to the skeleton crew. There were only 5 employees on shift for breakfast service, 2 fewer than the posted schedule allowed. No explanation was given. "Don't worry about the omelet station," Nate said to a young man with tired eyes. "Just throw out the pre-made pans and keep the line moving. But people ask for it. They'll live. We're not a damn resort." Vernon kept his head down. So far, Nate had shown no concern for food quality or customer experience. He operated like a man trying to run the place on autopilot with minimal effort. But it was what came next that made Vernon stop what he was doing. "Also, no extra bacon today. Executive rule," Nate announced with a grin. Cost control. That was a lie. Vernon had never issued such a directive, and no one from corporate had either. He made a mental note to check supply logs later. By mid-morning, Vernon had worked his way into the back kitchen, helping a cook named Lorna. She was in her 40s, all business, and the kind of employee who didn't waste time on small talk. Still, as they filled scrambled egg trays and rotated hash browns, she eventually spoke. "You're new, right?" "Yeah, Cal." "Good. Try to keep your head down. Nate don't like people asking questions." He kept his tone light. "Is that common?" Lorna glanced over her shoulder before answering. "Depends. If you're one of the guys he likes, you get easier shifts. If not, he'll ride you till you quit." Vernon didn't respond right away. Instead, he grabbed a clean tray and helped her load it into the warmer. "Why do people stay, then?" Again that quick glance. "Some need the hours. Some don't have a choice." She didn't elaborate. She didn't have to. Around 11, a middle-aged dishwasher named Curtis arrived for the lunch shift. He walked with a slight limp, wore thick gloves already stained from heavy use, and nodded politely to everyone. Vernon watched him shuffle to his station, where a pile of dirty pans already towered. As the restaurant filled with customers, Vernon rotated to the front line, where he was told to restock the salad bar. As he worked, he overheard snatches of conversations from customers, complaints about the potatoes being watery, the chicken being cold, the servers looking rushed. Every one of them made his stomach turn. He spotted Willow again, now working the dessert counter. A line had formed, and she was moving quickly, trying to keep up. Vernon noticed Nate standing near the soda fountain, arms crossed, watching her. A minute later, he walked over. "Move faster, Willow," he said loud enough for customers to hear. "You're not in slow motion class, are you?" She didn't respond, just nodded and kept working. Vernon walked over to help, grabbing extra slices of cake from the cooler. "I've got these," he said to her quietly. She gave a small nod, eyes focused ahead. When the line cleared, Nate approached again. "I thought I told you to keep her moving, not take over her station," he said to Vernon. "I was helping." She was handling it. "Yeah, well, help doesn't mean hover. Stick to what I assigned you." Vernon met his gaze. "Got it." Back in the break room later, he found Curtis sitting at the far table eating from his own packed container. Vernon joined him, noticing how the man's fingers shook slightly while holding his fork. "You okay?" Curtis looked up. "Yeah, just tired." Long shift yesterday. You always do dish solo? Pretty much. Used to be two of us, but other guy quit last month. They never replaced him. Why not? Curtis gave a tired shrug. Said budget didn't allow it. Vernon frowned. You ever ask for help? I did. Once. Nate told me if I couldn't handle the load, I shouldn't be here. Vernon stared at him for a long moment. That's not acceptable. Curtis just returned to his food. After lunch, Vernon helped wipe tables again. He was working near a mother and her young daughter when he noticed the girl staring at her plate. Mommy, my chicken's pink, she said. The mother flagged down a server who apologized and took the plate. Vernon slipped into the kitchen and found the tray of grilled chicken still steaming. He called over the line cook. Hey, this seems undercooked. The cook, a lanky guy in his 20s, shrugged. We're rushing today. Nate said get it out or it doesn't go out. Vernon narrowed his eyes. That's not safe. Tell him, not me. Vernon moved fast. Nate was in the office, scrolling on his phone. We've got undercooked chicken on the floor, Vernon said. Nate didn't look up. They'll replace it. That's a health risk. I'm not gonna start tossing trays every time someone thinks something's a little pink. Vernon stepped closer. You cut another corner like that, someone's getting hurt. Nate finally looked up. You don't give orders here. I do. Vernon's fists curled at his sides. Noted. He turned and walked out, his heart pounding. That was the moment. This wasn't just laziness. It was negligence. He spent the rest of the day observing more quietly. One of the newer servers, a soft-spoken woman named Leah, was clearly struggling with her section. Vernon helped her bus tables and refill drinks, and she thanked him quietly. First week? He asked. She nodded. It's been rough. You getting training? She paused. Not really. Nate said to follow the others and figure it out. By now, Vernon had seen enough. There was no excuse for what he'd witnessed: disregard for safety, favoritism, overworked employees, and a culture that punished the wrong people. The company he'd inherited had rotted in places, and no one in corporate had caught it. Because they'd trusted reports, trusted people like Nate. That night, instead of driving home, Vernon checked into a cheap motel nearby. He needed one more day. Not to observe, to act. He opened his laptop and sent a message to HR requesting immediate access to Store 7's personnel files and security footage for the past 3 months. Then, he contacted the regional food safety auditor. Lastly, he made a call to his COO. I'm revealing tomorrow, he said. I want you here. The man on the other end didn't hesitate. Understood. Vernon hung up and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Vernon arrived at Store 7 before sunrise, dressed in his usual tailored slacks and blazer. The beard was gone, glasses off, hair combed back into its usual part. The street outside was quiet, only the distant hum of a delivery truck breaking the silence. Through the wide front windows, he could see the overhead lights had just flickered on. Willow was inside, already polishing trays. He pushed the glass door open. Nate was standing near the register, sipping coffee from a styrofoam cup. He looked up, squinted, and frowned. We're not open yet, sir. Vernon didn't stop walking. I know. The manager blinked. Wait, Vernon. Vernon didn't respond. He kept his eyes on Nate, walking directly past him and stepping into the center of the dining room. Employees were trickling in, heads turning, some pausing mid-step as they recognized his face. Willow froze, still holding a tray in one hand, her mouth slightly open. Curtis, wiping down a prep counter, lowered his rag slowly. Vernon raised his voice just enough to carry. Everyone, can you come in here for a moment? I need a few minutes of your time. No one moved at first. Then Lorna stepped out from the back, arms crossed, eyes wary. Leah came in from the prep station, wiping her hands on her apron. One by one they gathered. Nate stayed by the soda machine, arms folded. "What's this about?" Vernon didn't look at him. "Not yet. My name is Vernon Talcott. I'm the owner of this company. For the past 3 days, I've worked here undercover as a trainee named Cal." A few people exchanged glances. Willow looked down, still holding the tray. "I came because too many things weren't making sense. Our reports said this location was fine. But what I've seen here has nothing to do with fine." He scanned the room slowly. "I saw employees doing 2 jobs without complaint. I saw a dishwasher working without backup, a high school student covering extra shifts without help, and a manager who treats his staff like they're disposable." Nate took a step forward, tone defensive. "Hold on. You don't know the full picture. This store's been understaffed for months. We've been managing the best we can." Vernon turned to him. "No. What you've been doing is ignoring safety, cutting corners, and intimidating employees into silence. I watched you mock a team member in front of customers. I saw you ignore a food safety issue that could have made a child sick. And I've reviewed the security footage. You've been clocking out hourly workers early without their consent and logging it as voluntary departures." Nate's mouth opened, then closed again. Vernon continued. "You've also been denying uniform reimbursements to part-time workers and using that to cut costs. That's not just against policy. It's illegal." Nate shifted on his feet. "The budget—" "You're done," Vernon said, voice steady. "You're terminated effective immediately. You'll receive a formal notice from HR by end of day, but you are not to re-enter this store or contact any employees." Nate's jaw tightened. "You don't know what it's been like running this place with no support. I gave you support. You misused it." Vernon turned to the employees. "I'm deeply sorry to all of you. This culture ends today." Nate stood frozen for a moment, then turned and walked out, not looking at anyone. Vernon gave it a beat before speaking again. "There are going to be some immediate changes. Starting today, any employee who paid out of pocket for uniforms will be reimbursed in full. HR already has a list. If you're not on it, see me directly." A few heads nodded. Willow looked up, still quiet. "Second, we're hiring 2 new dish staff and 2 additional line workers. Interviews start tomorrow. Until then, I'll be on shift here myself. You won't be short by even 1 person." Curtis looked at him, eyes narrowed with disbelief. "You're working the line? I'm not asking anyone to do what I won't, and I won't leave until this store runs right." Lorna raised an eyebrow. "That include prep?" "All of it." Vernon turned to Willow. "You've been one of the most consistent workers I've seen in a long time. You've handled every shift with grace, helped when no one asked, and stayed calm under pressure. Starting today, you're officially promoted to team lead. You'll receive full-time hours and benefits, and you'll be part of our training program for shift supervisors. You earned that." Willow blinked. "I'm not even 18. You're old enough to lead, and you already have." She nodded slowly, trying not to smile too widely. "And Curtis," Vernon said, turning, "your work ethic is unmatched. You've handled a 2-man load without complaint. That ends now. Starting today, we're doubling your hourly rate for the next 30 days as a thank you for carrying this place through chaos." The older man looked down, then back up. "Appreciate that. Leah," Vernon continued, "you never got any proper training. That's unacceptable. You're being partnered with a regional trainer starting today, and your first 2 weeks are now paid retroactively as orientation hours. That's how it should have been from the start." She gave a small nod, eyes wet. Vernon looked around the room. "I let myself drift too far from the ground. That won't happen again. Every store in this chain will be reviewed over the next 90 days. Every employee will have an anonymous line to corporate. And any manager who retaliates, intimidates, or manipulates hours will be removed. No warnings. He paused. You deserve leadership that protects you, not pressures you. This isn't just about food or numbers. It's about people. You. Silence hung heavy for a moment, and then Lorna spoke. So what now? Now we clean house, literally and figuratively. We fix the processes. We keep the good. We replace the bad. And we build a team that doesn't just survive, but thrives. The rest of the day was a blur of action. HR arrived by noon with reimbursement forms and a temporary supervisor from a sister location. Vernon rolled up his sleeves and jumped into prep with Lorna for the lunch rush. He ran back up for Curtis at the dish station. When demand spiked, he manned the carving line himself. Willow handled her new role quietly but confidently, assigning breaks and helping with shift transitions. For the first time in months, the team had someone watching their backs. No one took long breaks. They couldn't afford to. But for the first time, the breaks they did take felt earned, not stolen. By closing time, the difference was already tangible. The dining room had stayed cleaner. Customers left thank you notes at the register. Employees moved with less tension in their shoulders. As Vernon wiped down the last table, he saw Willow stacking chairs with Leah and Curtis. They weren't rushing. They were talking, laughing even. He walked over, grabbed a chair, and helped stack. Willow glanced at him. You weren't kidding about working the line. I never do. She paused. You think the other stores are like this? Some are better. Some might be worse. But none should be like this. Curtis looked over. You think people believe you mean it? Vernon met his eyes. They'll believe what we do next. He finished stacking the last chair, then looked out across the empty dining room. Tomorrow the work would continue. But tonight, Store 7 was finally quiet for the right reasons. The following weeks brought a steady rhythm to Store 7 measured, not miraculous. Vernon kept to his word, returning each morning in uniform, rotating between prep, line service, and dish, depending on where the gaps were. He didn't hover or instruct from the sidelines. He worked shoulder to shoulder with the team, listening without pretending to understand everything. The interim supervisor, a soft-spoken woman named Janelle from Store 3, brought structure to the scheduling. She met with each employee one-on-one to go over availability, overtime records, and shift preferences. With her help, they shifted from scraping by to operating with just enough to breathe. When Vernon walked into the break room one afternoon, he found Janelle seated with a small stack of notebooks beside her, each marked with an employee's name. You keeping a journal on US? He asked, half grinning. She didn't look up. Notes. You said you wanted honest feedback. This is what honest looks like. He sat down across from her. Anything I need to hear now? She flipped open the top notebook. Lorna wants a full-time schedule, but only if it comes with control over prep planning. She says the current system wastes time. Done. If she writes the plan, we follow it. Janelle nodded and continued. Lee's considering quitting, not because of the job, because her kids' daycare hours got cut, and she's got no one for afternoons. Vernon leaned back, thinking. She's solid. Can we shift her to split morning shifts? I already asked. She said mornings would work. Make the change. And give her a raise to cover the lost hours. Janelle made a note. And Willow? He waited. She's doing the job, but she's not sure yet if she wants the responsibility long term. She's 17. She's measuring every step. I don't blame her. She doesn't want to disappoint anyone. She hasn't. That evening, as the dinner crowd thinned, Vernon found Willow near the dry storage, restocking condiments. Her movements were precise, quick, but never hurried. You have a minute? He asked. She nodded, stepping aside to clear a path. He leaned against the metal rack. I heard you're not sure about the team lead role. She kept her eyes on the shelf. I'm trying. I just don't want to mess it up. You haven't. She hesitated. It's not just the work. It's... People look at me different now. Like they're waiting for me to fail. Vernon nodded. That's real. But leadership isn't about getting everything right. It's about showing up when it counts. You've already done that. Willow closed the cabinet and turned to face him. If I say I want to try something else in a year like culinary school, does that make me uncommitted? No. It makes you ambitious. She didn't respond right away. Then, okay, I'll keep going. For now. That's all I ask. The next morning, a corporate compliance officer arrived unannounced. Vernon had scheduled the review quietly. He wanted every system at Store 7 audited. Not just cleanliness. Payroll, maintenance logs, supplier invoices, and employee safety documentation. By afternoon, the officer returned with a printout in hand. 2 things you need to see, she said, handing over the paper. First, there's been a backlog of maintenance requests that were marked as resolved but never addressed. Most of them logged by the previous manager. Vernon scanned the list. The walk-in cooler seal, the prep sink leak. These were never fixed. Not according to the logs. But they were reported. Lorna's been dealing with that sink for weeks. The officer nodded. And second, there were discrepancies in payroll entries. Several employees' clock-out times were manually adjusted by management. We checked against the camera footage. Vernon's jaw tightened. How far back? 17 weeks. He folded the paper and stood. We'll back pay every single shift. Use the footage timestamps. I want a full report on my desk by Monday. She nodded. Already in motion. Later that week, Vernon called a full team meeting during the midday lull. Everyone gathered in the dining room, wiping their hands on aprons and leaning against booths. I wanted to update you on a few things, he began. First, you'll all be receiving revised paychecks to reflect any hours that were removed without your approval. That process is already underway. There were murmurs, but no applause. Just quiet, tired relief. Second, we've approved 3 new hires. Janelle's finishing interviews. 1 will support Curtis in dish, 1 on the line, and 1 in service rotation. That should give us breathing room. Lorna crossed her arms. You gonna keep working shifts too? He smiled. For now. Until the team's strong enough to not need me. Curtis raised an eyebrow. And after that? Then I go back to doing my job. Making sure the system works for you, not against you. He looked around the room. You've all carried the store through some of its worst days. You deserved better. And from now on, you'll get it. After the meeting, Vernon stayed behind to reset chairs. Willow lingered nearby, folding napkins into neat triangles. You're not going to disappear again, are you? She asked without turning. No, I'll be around. Quietly. She nodded. I believe that. The next morning, before the store opened, Vernon met with the COO and regional leadership in the back office. They reviewed the audit findings, discussed the rollout of employee feedback systems, and finalized a plan to rotate internal audits through every location unannounced, unbiased, and tracked against performance reviews. Any pushback from other managers? The COO asked. A few, Vernon said. They won't last. That afternoon, a new trainee shadowed Leah on the beverage line. She was patient, showing the right pacing and positioning without overwhelming him. When the new hire made a mistake, she corrected him softly, then moved on. In the back, Curtis showed his new support how to load trays for drying. Lift from the bottom, he said. You save your wrists that way. By week's end, the new hires were learning fast, and the existing team had adjusted. The pace was still intense, but the cracks had been sealed with support instead of silence. Vernon stepped outside during the closing shift, leaning against the brick wall near the dumpster, catching his breath. The air was cool. No shouting, no clatter from inside, just the low rumble of a closing kitchen. Janelle joined him, wiping her hands on a towel. "You going back to corporate next week?" "Yeah." "You worried about the other stores?" "I'm ready for them." She nodded. "This place feels different now." He looked up at the dark sky. "It should." Inside, Willow was finishing up her checklist. Lorna was prepping tomorrow's batch sheet. The new dish hand was rinsing out the mop bucket, while Curtis leaned on a crate, giving pointers. Vernon stepped back inside and closed the door behind him. Store 7 hadn't been fixed overnight, but it had been reset with truth, trust, and the one thing that had been missing all along: leadership that stayed.